We are talking about craniosacral therapy with Veal. My friend Karen introduced me to Lee years ago. And every year when I come to Kansas City, Karen and I have a tradition where we do back to back appointments with Lee and then go and get fresh juices and debrief about our experience being on Lee's table because it is always magical. With over 40 years' experience as a practitioner, Lee draws from a lot of movement vocabularies to support recovery in adults, children, and babies. Originally trained as a chiropractor, Lee worked alongside a cranial osteopath, which inspired him to focus on craniosacral. He's also studied Sanskrit, yoga, meditation, Pilates, Tai Chi, Thai massage, and many other healing modalities. And Lee's unique approach draws from Qigong and integrates cranial sacral with therapeutic Pilates, contact improvisation, sound healing, and other internal arts. He's also developed an advanced cranial system to help people of all ages recover from trauma. And as an educator, Lee has created curriculum to train many other instructors and devotes a lot of time to research and development and to teaching cranial work to parents and their babies. Oh, Lee is one of the most gifted practitioners I have ever seen. This man is so special, and his knowledge of anatomy and how the human body works is extraordinary. And his zest for life and love is just infectious. Oh, I am so excited for you to hear what he has to say. So let's get the skinny from Lee Veal.
Oh, Lee, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you about your life and this beautiful work that you do. So let's start with some of these it has to be me moments that led to you being this beautiful cranial sacral therapist and all the many things that you are. Did it start when you were a child? Did you know that you were a healer?
Well, I was born from my mother, and that was my first healing event
Mm.
because they knocked women out back then and drug us out with forceps. So it actually twisted the skull and the brain. And so I find that healing is about undoing that original wounding.
Ooh.
And so we have events in our lives, we have accidents, we meet with people, we have experiences. And to me, they're about recreating an environment where that original wounding can find resolution.
Mm.
Oftentimes, we don't recognize that, and it re traumatizes the system. So I find that that kind of original wounding kind of led me to many different wounding experiences. Like I fell 3 stories and bounced to the concrete when I was 21. I had a horse fall on top of me when I was 28. I had, when I was 16, they actually operated on my perineum. So they cut the pubococcygeus muscle. So I'm a miracle that I'm here. And so that original wounding led me to the different trauma that led me to understanding the power and the glory of this divine incarnation. That's the truth of healing.
Yeah. And you had a lot of steps along the way to claim your role
Yes.
in the healing space. So what did they teach you along the way when you didn't go straight into it?
Well, I was reading an article in the osteopathic magazine, and they said, what's the best training for cranial sacral therapy? And the answer was classical piano.
Ooh, tell me about that.
So when I was 8, I demanded that my parents let me take piano lessons. And
Why
so
did you demand? Why did you demand that? What was it in you?
I did. I needed it. I was from 5. I was reaching above the piano and playing. And they said, no, you have to wait until you're 8. Okay, well, there I was, but finally I got to take piano lessons, and then I spent the next 20 years practicing because I love to practice. I love to practice scales. And so I find that what that did was program the fascia of my hands.
Mm.
Every finger is different from each of the other fingers, and they're powerful and strong, and they have intelligence of music, of vibration and frequency that's imprinted, programmed within the fascia of my hands. And so that is one of the most important healing steps, is to initiate the hands into the magic of fascia.
Oh, so let's talk about what fascia is and why it's so important.
That's a big question.
Yeah, let's dive into it.
Well, I want you to think about Jello. Okay, if you have a bowl of Jello and you put it in the refrigerator, it gets really firm.
Yep.
And when you take it out of the refrigerator, it gets kind of sloppy. And you can put some fruit cup in there or some cottage cheese or whatever it is that you want, you know. You can blend it up. You know what I mean? Put it into a new mold and it'll take up the shape of the new mold. You can do that over and over. This is probably the most fascinating characteristic of fascia that I find. Fascia is like Jello. When you traumatize it, it gets congealed and it doesn't move, limits mobility. But as you move it, as you take it out of the refrigerator, it gets sloppy and juicy, and it begins to function in a whole different way. I want you to think about computers in the early days where we had dial up,
Yeah.
right? And you could turn the computer on, boot it up, and go and have breakfast, and then come back, and it was like, and now all of a sudden, fiber optics, it's waiting for you. Fascia is like that. When it hydrates, when it gets juicy, it becomes the fiber optics of the body. It's the magic intelligence within the body that is like fiber optics compared to the dial up of the nervous system. It communicates in, so many different dimensions. Just like if you were on your phone, you can dial across the planet just like we are.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is an outpicturing of fascia. The capacity for fascia to be able to communicate instantaneously. That's fascia. Okay, that to me is a function of fascia that we never have gotten before because fascia was disregarded and um, really not really paid much attention to.
Well,
So,
it's having its moment in the sun now.
oh boy, but there are all kinds of fascia. Okay, I'm a born again fascialist, preaching the gospel. Okay, of fascia. You have fascia that surrounds the brain. We call that your dura mater. You have fascia that surrounds your heart. That's called the pericardium. You have
Mm.
fascia that surrounds your eyeballs and your liver and your colon and your toes and your every vessel, every blood vessel, every lymphatic vessel, it's covered in fascia. And there's spongy fascia underneath your skin. There's like all kinds of different fascia, and they make the body one whole piece.
Mm.
And this is the key to fascia: is that it's not. You don't study. Here's your shoulder. Let's know everything about the shoulder. Here's your elbow. Let's know everything about your elbow. Here, no, that's segmental, corporate medical entity kinds of approach, which is to divide it up and segmentize it and you know make it so that it's understandable to the mind. Fascia is not that. fascia communicates one whole piece, its whole systems. It's not something you can grasp completely with your mind because it's not about the mind. It's about the intuition. It's about the heart. Fascia
Mm.
is the way of the heart. And so those people who have big hearts, they have very extraordinary communicative fascia because the heart is the biggest electromagnetic generator of the body, far bigger than the brain. So we have to see that this is a rhythm that's carried out through the fascia. So fascia, another characteristic of fascia is that it's bilayer. It means that you have a basement layer, which is kind of dense, provides form and function. Then you have a fluid layer on top. That's like the gravy on the chicken. That's the best part. Okay. And when the gravy is good, let me tell you, it's good. But it contains all the life-giving molecules that all the cells need. And every fascia is attenuated to that particular organ. The pericardium knows what the heart needs. And
Yeah.
so it'll order it up. We need some of this over here. Oh, the fascia of the liver knows what the liver needs. So it has its own particular intelligence. All right. So there's this whole incredible, magical, intelligent, responsive kind of thing we have inside us that is available and responsive whenever we can turn inside and look.
So, when did you become fascinated with fascia and the power of it?
There's something called Rolphing. Have you ever heard of Rolphing?
Yes, it's incredible.
Rolfers are the key to fascial understanding. They actually, there was the woman who developed Rolfing was Ida Rolf. And believe it or
Mm.
not, she was this, so I understand, was the secretary of William Garner Sutherland, who developed cranial work, who was the
Mm.
osteopath back in the 30s and 40s. And she wrote down all the notes and created a whole technique around fascia and how does the fascia balance and so she began a whole way of training people that was addressing the fascia as one whole pathway. So I got Rolfed back in 1981 because with all my trauma, I was always in a lot of pain and I'm trying to figure out how to, get out of pain, how to be able to, move and stuff. So I encountered a Rolfer, a wonderful woman up in the mountains of Boulder. And they have 10 sessions. And I was just totally amazed because I got out of pain. I could move.
Yeah.
I could actually, communicate to my body. I could digest my food. I could it's just amazing. So I really began to understand the power of fascia from my Rolfing experience. But then that led me into the power of fascia that wraps around the brain. Okay, that's called your dura mater. And I actually was getting Rolfed at the same time I was apprenticing with my cranial osteopathic mentor. So I was getting a big download on fascia in the early 80s. And
And what made you move from doing chiropractic?
I never did. I never did. I was always an outlander.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. Tell
I
me about
only went
that.
to chiropractic college to get a foundation and a platform from which I could preach the gospel of fascia.
Okay. So
I
you went
went
to the
to actually there was an
chiropractic.
old doctor back in New Mexico. I
Mm.
was taking care of a quadriplegic 24/7 down in the Gila Reservation down in the southwestern part of New Mexico. And we would
Mm.
go up to a chiropractor who did cranial work up in Gallup. And he kind of like was an amazing healer. And again, he kind of turned me on to, here's the fascia, here's the cranial, here's how you can talk to it. So you don't have to crack or punch or, you know, have anything more than just the loving intention. And so I went to chiropractic college just so that I could um, find a platform and find
Mm.
like-minded people, because there was a group of chiropractors who followed this cranial work. They called it the sacral occipital technique.
Okay.
So
Yes.
that was how the osteopath sort of like bled into the chiropractic, but they changed it in a way that kind of made it less effective.
Okay.
So anyway,
And
that's why I went to chiropractic college.
yeah, yeah. So for the listener who doesn't know anything about cranial sacral therapy, what is it?
It's magic.
It
It's
is.
pure
It
magic.
is indeed. It is
It's the
indeed.
magic of the person's capacity to heal. It is a technique that gives full venue for the client's healing capacity to have full venue, full staging, full support, costumes, lighting, everything, and the orchestra. Okay, because we don't get that. Everybody wants to take that away from you. The doctors want to be the healers. The chiropractors want to be the ones who do something. And so cranial sacral therapy is the art of encouraging the client's own healing power to come into full uh, glory. So that means you, as a practitioner, you've got to know the anatomy of the body. You've got to know the fascial underpinnings of the body. You've got to feel the rhythm. And the beautiful thing about cranial sacral therapy is rhythm. Your
Mm.
brain has the capacity and is constantly expanding and contracting, expanding and contracting. Slow, slower than your heart, slower than your lungs, than your diaphragm. And so it goes like 7 to 11 cycles per minute. And it happened before you were born. It happened before you had a heart. It's the rhythm of the brain pulsed. That's what the cranial sacral therapy therapist is actually feeling, is the pulse of your brain that started before birth. Connecting with that healing, powerful being that is still in there. It's just covered with all kinds of stuff. So that is a
Yes.
cranial rhythm, and that cranial rhythm is the thing that is fundamental to the entire body. If you think about the ocean, you have waves and you have swells, and then you have the tide that comes in slowly. Okay, so the heart is like the waves. The breath is like the swells. The cranial rhythm is this tidal rhythm that slowly comes in and recedes. And that tidal rhythm is transmitted through the entire body through the fascia. That's the job of the fascia, is to transmit this tidal rhythm that you can feel in your feet, in your elbow, in your shoulder, wherever you want to put your hands on the body, wherever there's fascia, you're able to tune into that cranial rhythm that's slow and potent. And then that awakens the body's natural potency to say, wait a minute, I can do this. Okay, let's go. Mobilize this. Let's get over here and mobilize that. And it awakens the intelligence that's already inside us, that's been slathered with x-rays and MRIs and opinions and diagnoses and whatever, and there's no description for it. There's nothing you can write about. They've written a lot of volumes of material trying to describe it, but they can't because it's something pre-conscious. So
Mm.
craniosacral therapy allows the client to go into a pre-conscious state, access their own healing power by following that rhythm and allowing that rhythm to have ascendancy in its expression. So it's the magic of the body coming into fullness. Now, I might be holding a leg and feeling, how does that leg not attach? Where's that leg being, where's that communication? Where's that glue or that scar tissue from a trauma 20 years ago? How can we facilitate the body's capacity to undo that scar tissue, undo those adhesions? It's like Jello. After you put it in the refrigerator a couple of times, take it out, put it in, take it out. It gets kind of rubbery around the edges. That's
Mm.
scar tissue. Now you can dissolve it, but you got to get some hot water and some pressure to do that. Okay. Well, that's what we have to do with adhesions of scar tissue. Is allow the body's natural, we call that myofascial release, where we have pressure and heat and warmth and patience and love. The body can dissolve adhesions. And it's like people all of a sudden let go. Like, what happened?
Mm.
I said, well, I didn't do anything.
Oh, you always say that, Lee. You know, when
Well,
I'm on your
I
team,
don't do nothing.
I,
I ain't doing
oh
nothing.
God, oh my goodness. I mean,
Well, I tell
it's
my
so,
students,
so gentle, so powerful what you do. And you always say, there you go. You know what to do.
it's powerful what I don't do.
Oh, tell me about that.
Well, I teach there. I have taught in the New Mexico um, massage school there in Taos. The university has a massage program there. So I've taught there 10 years, and I tell my students, you have to do less than nothing.
Ooh.
Now, as long as you're doing nothing, you're doing something because you're doing nothing. Okay, it's the doing that's the problem. So I say you have to take the I out of the process. You have to efface your ego. You have to efface what your expectations are. What's your agenda? You want them to get better. You want them to pay you. You want them to like you. You want them to be the fancy dancy healer that gets, spread around the community. You have to take all of that out and not be there and just let the process be. It's like putting your hands in a river of golden light. Your hands dissolve in that light. So there's no you left.
I mean, Lee, what you're describing though is a spiritual path.
It's none other but the
Yeah.
body is the original temple. I don't care whether you're Hindu, Christian, Buddhist, Japanese, all of that religion is based on the body.
Yeah.
And they're all maps of how the body works. The body is a starship.
Yeah.
We have dials that can dial in different frequencies, different dimensions. All right. And so if you don't know that this is a magical divine experience process, we have to go into different dimensions. And so that's why I spent like 12 years in different ashrams meditating 6 to 8 hours a day between 19 and age of 19 and 32. And
Mm.
I found that it was only from that depth of understanding, that depth of self effacement, that depth of understanding that this is a divine play and that we are called to do things in that divine play. Whether it's as a client, I had to be a client before I could be a practitioner. I had to see the power of my own miracle before I could then, share that with other people. So I find that I don't care what spiritual path you're on, it's the love of Jesus that allows this to work.
And you were going to go into the church
I
at
was going
one
to be a
point.
minister. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I found that, you know, Jesus is love.
Yeah.
Okay. And so people go, how did that happen? What did you do? I said, if I would tell the truth, I loved you. I loved
Oh.
your shoulder. I loved the flow that's
Ah.
through there. I loved the Jesus that you embody and that I
Mm.
embody. Okay. You can't do this without the love of God. That heals everything. It's always there. Never desert. I don't care what kind of darkness you're in. There's always that love of the divine. Now, Hindus call it Krishna,
Mm.
Shiva. Chinese call it Buddha or Guanyin or, so many different names. But it's that love that is part of this natural healing magic that brings people back into resonance with the divine plan. You can't do craniosacral therapy without understanding this is a part of a divine plan that we are interacting with. I kind of tell people, you're the starship and I'm the crew.
Mhm.
Okay, well, you gotta go around and make sure that all the different pieces of the starship is working. Okay, but you're still knowing that this is the starship and that we're in congruence with, divine resonance.
So, as a teacher teaching future practitioners, we're talking about that relationship with the divine, taking the I out of the process, being intuitive, listening to the rhythm, doing nothing. That takes discipline.
Well,
And and so how do you teach that? Because there are a lot of people hanging shingles that don't have the same kind of discipline and approach as you do to this work.
there's a saying: the fruit falls not far from the tree. Those that have discipline will get results, and then they will become known. Those that don't have discipline will not get results, and they will be forgotten. So I find that it's a matter of, with any discipline, whether it's playing the piano, whether it's meditating, whether it's doing Tai Chi, whether it's doing anything, we've got to come back again and again. Just come back to the process. Just come back and play the scales. Just come back and put your hands on people's bodies and not know what you're doing and why you're there. All of a sudden, something happens. Like, oh my God, but it requires you to come back again and again to that process. And discipline seems like a harsh word.
Oh, tell
But
me about that.
I think it's about being filled with joy.
Oh, that's a nice way to think about it.
Okay. It's like, you want to, that's like a buffet table for, that joy, is like, feels good. All right. And if you can come up to the buffet of joy, then it comes back again and again to that buffet because, oh man, get the jello dessert, get that prime rib, whatever it is, but that's what discipline is. It's coming back to the joy. You can't, if it's otherwise, it's dry discipline. It's got to be
Mhm.
the joy that juices us up so that discipline is easy because you're involved in joy. It brings you joy. And because to me, there's nothing I get more joyful about than sharing love. And I do that every day, you know, with clients. And I can't say, well, I love you, because not that. We don't have a real clear delineation between that level of love and personal relationship love. And so then it gets really confusing. So you have to use different words,
Mm.
but it's the same thing.
Yeah. Tell me about what you've learned from working with babies. Just thinking about that pre-conscious being that hasn't been conditioned by society yet and is pure love.
Well, no, not
But
on that is pure. They don't have a language.
yeah, what is
They
it then?
don't
Tell
talk.
me.
They're like,
Yeah.
well, guess what? Fascia is beyond language.
Okay.
I have developed what I call fascial languaging. How do you talk to the fascia? Well, one of the ways I love is what I call wiggle and jiggle. You hold a little baby and wiggle and jiggle, and you wiggle and jiggle, and you kind of like, stick your tongue out, and they kind of like, oh yeah, I like that. Wiggle and jiggle me more, and they will be exactly. It's like a cat or a dog. They know where they want to be wiggled and jiggled. So they will show you where they want and how they want and what they want. You just have to be willing to follow their cue of how to wiggle and jiggle. All right. So I find it could be the silliest, stupidest things. It like, for example, if you had a big, bad, mean guy coming after you with a club and was going to hurt you, all of your fascia would be, right? But if you had your grandmother there with a plate of big cookies and you could smell them cookies and you could feel her love just oozing through the room, your fascia would open up and just sort of like get big and balloony, because it wasn't cookies. Okay. And so I find that the environment is as important as anything you do with a baby is what does it smell like? What's the intention? What's the environment? What's the softness? What kind of environment are you bringing the baby into? Because the baby is like all of it. The babies start working with me before they get here, and after they leave, I'm like, oh, I got to tell the mother, blah, 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 because the baby is continue. The baby is not bound by time and space, so you have to be open to. Oh, that's little baby Jacob who's calling me and saying, I want this when you get, and who brings the baby to me? The baby puts the intention into the mama and the mama brings the baby. All right. So we have to realize that intention. What am I doing here? What is going on? And so that intention is a way of fascial languaging because the fascia works with intention. Remember the big mean guy and the grandma, they have different intentions, and that intention is an extension of their essence. So babies are all about intention. All right. And so if you say, okay, I'm here, I want to hear your story. Babies have a story. And that's the beautiful thing. It's like their story is not in words, their story is in movement. Kicking, it's a story. I have a video clip on my website about what I call footsie is a baby languaging, and by putting your hand on the little baby's feet and following every little twinkle of the toe or every little squinch or twisting and turning or pushing in or pulling out, and that whole thing is a story of movement of how they came out. I mean, what's happened in the baby's life? The big thing, they had life and death experience called being born. Every baby goes through life and death. I tell you, I've seen hundreds of babies, and they're all like, "Dude, that was big." So it's about, and then that's footsie. That immediately talks to the brain. You're immediately doing cranial work with the baby by putting your hands on their feet and following it, because guess what? The fascia connects the toe to the tongue. It's a direct connection all the way down. So if you want to deal with tongue tie, you got to deal with the toe, with the big toe. That's big. And to me, this is the job of the parents. They love playing foot, or the grandparents, for God's sakes. So I'm all about training parents and grandparents on the role of footsie and kick. Where do they kick from? How to do it. I had to kick to get out of there. It wasn't just mom squeezing her uterus on it. The baby kicked and used those contractions to like squirm out of there. Okay. That's a part of the story is what did you run into on the way? Oh, that's your mama's pubic bone in your forehead. Well, let's see if we can't like listen to that. All right. So I find that you have to stop your mind from thinking that this is a linear kind of word thing that's happening, or that it stops or starts when the baby gets there or leaves. So I find that everything. So I've developed all kind of handhold, like letting the baby's head just drift over the elbow, especially dad's elbow, because dad's got this big old muscular elbow that the baby has been waiting to get a hold of. Okay, and so then if you just pick up the rump and let the head kind of get, then the baby starts going, oh yeah, oh dad, thanks, oh man. That's craniosacral. You're holding the sacrum, you're holding the cranium, and you're letting it talk to one another, because what happens in birth, they get cut off from one another. I had one client, the baby's head was dangling out of the womb for minutes before the rest of the body came out. Talk about disconnecting. So what we have to do is let's let the body have a safe place to reconnect. And that's why I have a big tummy, because the babies fit on the tummy. Okay, and then they go, oh, that's a warm tummy. Okay, they like that. So again, it's the environment. It's like, who would think that my tummy was a part of the baby cranial? No, well, it is. Babies talk through their feet, through their wiggles, through all of it. So I find the more that you realize that the baby has a story, the baby can unwind if it is supported and listened to on a somatic level. And once they hear that, and the more you know about the different anatomy pieces, the more you can be specific about, I'm holding the baby psoas muscle. Wiggle, 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 jiggle, 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 up and down, you know what I mean? But I'm still working that psoas muscle, because that's one of the biggest communicators of the body. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to put my hands on your baby's head and it's going to be okay. That's not what I do. It's like they are masters of fascial languaging, because there's no mind to impede that level of communication. So it turns me on to how to treat my adult clients as babies. How to get beyond the story and feel what is beyond the verbal story of, this happened to me, and then I got ran into, and then it hit over here, and then it did that, and then I did that, and then we did that. Well, what did the body do? My mentor would always say, it's not, if you fall down the stairs, it's not how you landed at the bottom of the stairs, it's how you got there. That's what has to be listened to, so that the body can unwind it and recover and undo and release, because it's the body's process, the body's story anyway.
So, as adults, how can we become better at listening to our bodies and the story of our bodies? How can we keep our fascia healthy?
That's where Qigong and Tai Chi come in. Everyone should be doing Tai Chi and Qigong every day. They should find some video or some person that can help them do the Tai Chi and Qigong, because the Chinese know how the body moves in its original state. So by moving the body, we can unwind the trauma that has been lodged in the tissue. We can unleash the story that has been frozen by fear, terror, or whatever. But we have to move, and that's why I find we got to have a guide to show us, here's how you can move. Here's how you can squat. Here's how you can move on the ball. Here's how you can open. And so the more you get on a ball, go get a ball, get on the ball. I mean, we are so molded by chairs and furniture. I think it's really a sad situation. If we look at the genocide that happened in Australia, the genocide that happened in the United States, the genocide that happens in India with the British, how did that happen? They took them out of their village environment and put them in schools in chairs. Before they were squatting. Now they're in chairs. Before they had their own costumes, their own capacity to move. Now they can't move, and you can't even move to go pee. They have to have little uniforms. And if they speak their language, you get the tongue pierced with a needle. I mean, we are being tortured by furniture because it doesn't let us move in our natural starship way. So anyone who wants to come deeper in contact with their original template, get out of furniture. Throw the TV away. Move. Hug a tree. Wiggle on the dirt. Do all the things, that a baby would do. I mean, that's what I love about babies. They give you permission to come into their world.
Yes.
Get on the floor with a baby and wiggle with your feet in the air or with your head down below their feet or whatever, Do something spontaneous outside of the realm of furniture. Throw the couch out. The couch is a lie. It says, oh yeah, you can be comfortable here. You can let go into deep parasympathetic. Oh, come on. You love it. You can watch it. No, it's just a matter of anesthetizing the body to the real sensation. And they have to come to me to get relief from the torture of the couch.
Oh, that's some truth there. So if we want,
what house have you seen that doesn't have a couch?
yeah, right. That's why I'm saying that's some truth there.
Japan, sometimes.
Yeah.
The Dogon people in Africa. Yeah, so I find you've got to get out of the things that keep you locked into a mental framework that here is a square. Who decided that the square was the way the houses are supposed to be?
Yeah. I mean, there are a
There's not
lot of containers we're putting ourselves in.
Change the container. You'll change the consciousness. That's why the geodesic dome with Buckminster Fuller was so revolutionary, was that, wow, this has an effect on how we are as beings. How can we access our intuition? Get in a dome. Yeah, change what you surround yourself with, and you will change how you respond. You'll break out of it, that 4x4 kind of life we lead.
Tell me about heightening our listening, our body listening to what our body needs.
Well, one of the problems we have is that we've been seduced by the corporate medical entity that the doctors know more than we do. And they've shut us out of our bodies through the languaging anatomical, biological languaging is a nightmare. Only, people who have years of study can even put where's the tibialis anterior? what, all these names we can't even begin to think about that. So we have been locked out of our bodies. So we've been locked out of a sensation-based life. We want to eliminate pain. Aspirin and Tylenol, I've made a lot of money because we don't know how to listen to pain without thinking that it's bad. Pain is not bad. It's a story that we need to listen to and find support listening to it. And so I find that we have to begin to take a risk of feeling our pain and changing the paradigm of the wound from something that has to be healed. What if the wound needed to be listened to? What if it revealed something of the soul? What if there was like something you don't want to close up because it gives you access to the inner world in a way that nothing else can? I had to lay in bed for 6 months after I fell just because there was nothing else to do. So I was able to really be okay with being wounded, being okay with being in pain, being okay with this is the way it is. You're not going to, you can get better and better, but there's no, and they lived happily ever after. So I find we have to then make up stories. That's what I love about fairy tales. A lot of times I make up fairy tales for the body so that people can have a way to access their feeling. Okay, what if the head was Babylon and the feet were Egypt? And back in biblical times, that there was the caravan route went right straight through Israel, right straight through the Sea of Galilee. There was a beautiful town on the eastern part of Galilee called Magda, and it was devoted to the goddess. And they would come there, and all the caravans would stop, and they were watering the horses and everything, and they had a great congress. Aleppo was part of that, and then they would continue down to Egypt. This is Babylon. The feet is Egypt, and this is the Sea of Galilee. Okay, so we need to come down into the Sea of Galilee and hear the stories of all the different travelers and all the different fabrics and the different spices and the different entertainment, the dancing and the music and all that stuff that goes on at the Sea of Galilee. Realize that this is a community. It's a community of the tummy, stomach. And the Chinese see that this is the yellow cord. And each of the ambassadors to the yellow cord, one is the lungs, one is the liver, one is the spleen and pancreas, one is the heart, one is the kidneys, and so they all have this court that they begin to talk and move around together. And so we realize that the liver is not just this organ. The liver is an ambassador of a whole country that is here to tell a story about, the element of wood, the color of green. These are all the liver stories. And so we begin to allow ourselves to get out of medical corporate entity languaging and get into fairy tales and give ourselves permission to, like, well, maybe there's a whole drama, a whole play, a whole going on that has a script. And so I find by studying all the physiology, I could understand what was the relationship between the liver and the heart, and how did that work, and how did that feel. I was married to my first wife, and I was down in Austin, Texas, and she's a big woman like myself, and we lived in the apartment above our best friends in one of those fourplexes. And we would fight all the time. We would stomp around and fight. And our friends did not know if they were going to have the chandelier come down on them or they were going to come through the roof or not. Okay. And they said, okay, look, you guys, it's okay to fight, but just go outside. I'm like, wow, we never could do it. We would always erupt into stomping around. Okay. Well, finally, they got a broomstick and started poking the ceiling right where our futon was, right? In the like 3 a.m, just to get back at us, right? And I began to realize, wow, somebody's ceiling is someone else's floor. That's just really an amazing kind of thing. That it's a totally different thing, a floor and a ceiling. But it's the same thing. Well, the heart sits on top of the diaphragm on the central tendon. In fact, the pericardium surrounding the heart is part of the central tendon. So there's no difference between the diaphragm and the heart and the pericardium. The liver hangs from the diaphragm, hangs from the central tendon. So the ceiling of the liver is the floor of the heart. Wow. I mean, there's a relationship between the liver and the heart, and what is it, how, and all these different kind of relationships that can go on when we have high blood pressure. Maybe it's because the liver is congested and the heart can't pump the blood through the liver because it's all congested. Are we going to have anybody to tell us how to uncongest our liver so that we can release our high blood pressure? No. Excuse me. We're going to have medication. And if you get off the medication, it's not good. Why not just drink beet juice for the liver? Miss Juice Queen.
As you're telling me these stories, my capacity to see the possibilities expands. And that's the power of story and visualization and the heart dreaming and the cells dreaming. And it takes me back to being on your table. And you do always tell stories in the session.
Well,
And you ask questions and you listen. And it's like you've got X-ray vision. I was transported to the many times where I've been feeling like I'm levitating on your table. I mean, that gong bathing session with you all playing gongs.
Well, there's a whole other story.
I mean, that's a whole other level of healing. I mean, just extraordinary. But the story piece of this and the dreaming and seeing and feeling and listening differently and changing the story that we're telling ourselves and the stories we're listening to externally, it really is such a huge part of it.
Well, the body hears everything we say. Everything we say. So I remember I was like, would always find myself telling myself, oh, you're an idiot. And I would like really berate myself because I was such an idiot. And I realized, I'm not an idiot, but there was a self-talk that was constantly telling me that I was an idiot. And so when I took my third wife home to meet my parents, she was into children of alcohol, ACA, adult children of alcoholics.
Mhm.
And then she said, Lee, you go back and listen to your mother there at Thanksgiving dinner and just hear the just casual verbal abuse of me being called an idiot. And then I'm like, wow, so how does an idiot feel? Well, an idiot feels overwhelmed. That's what an idiot feels. Oh, okay. So when you say that you're an idiot, that's your body telling you that you're overwhelmed. Oh, and when you're overwhelmed, what do you want to do? Lie down. Oh, so that means when you say to yourself you're an idiot, that's really your body saying you want to lie down. Oh, I can lie down. So now I have 7 places in my house where I can just lie down whenever.
You do. It's fabulous.
Yeah, whenever, just lie down. Well, that's
I
the
love
good
it when
thing.
you go, where do you want to lie down, Tess? Where do you want to lie down? And then you take me to all these options.
Upstairs, downstairs, anywhere. Because I realize think that I have to be like other people and be upright. All right. But I don't have, if I'm feeling, and so I realize that I'm in so much pain that I feel like an idiot because I'm not lying down. And I'm like, that's where a lot of self hatred comes from because, you're in pain. And so you hate that. And like, no, you don't hate no, you can go lie down and then you're out of pain. Oh my God. What a simple thing.
Yeah.
Don't take Tylenol, just go lie down. Poke yourself.
But we keep pushing through because we've got to keep doing. We've got to be better. And at the same time, we often have these limiting beliefs about what we're capable of, that we're broken, that we're not going to be able to be healed, that we've been told that we're this or that.
I like to change the word healed to recovery. We're in recovery.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's what I learned from the recovery programs. You may not going to be healed. It may not be out of pain, but you can get over your cheap self. I mean, you can.
But yeah. I mean, yeah. In 12-step programs, you're in recovery.
Right. And I think that's a really
Yeah.
important model.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the next thing we can do? What's the next best thing? Oh, just lie down. Okay.
Ooh, I like what you're saying there. Just focusing on what's the next best thing.
Yeah, that's an old AA slogan.
It is. Yeah. I mean, just for today is by my bed. From Al-Anon. I like thinking just for today, I can do this. And just living moment by moment, breath by breath, and listening to what you need and giving yourself permission to do it. The permission piece is something that's coming up for me. Give me your thoughts around that. Some of the words that I've used, you go, I don't know about that. That's harsh. Or I like this word. How do you feel about permission?
I feel that we first have to give ourselves permission to feel grace.
Mm.
If we can surrender into the grace of the divine, if we can give ourselves just that permission to fall in the arms of the beloved, then it's a difference. We realize that we don't, it's easy. And so I find that we don't know about giving permission because a lot of times we were in situations where no permission was asked. No permission could be given because it wasn't even asked. Can I touch you? No.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want this food? No. you want to go someplace? No. No, you're going, and I'm going to take you up, and so we don't know that there's a possibility of even giving permission because we were never really asked. And so I find that, again, it's in the divine context that we can find full permission. And it's like, oh, that's where we can learn how to give permission, not only to ourselves, but to give permission to the others to like hear their story without thinking it's my fault or I've done something wrong, or get out of that kind of transactional kinds of relationships. And that's where I find that practicing permission, words. Is it all right with you? How do you feel about that? We can ask permission in many different ways by asking, how does that feel for you? I have to ask a lot of times, I'm going to touch you. Is that okay? Can I hold your elbow? Can I cradle your head? I mean, and oh, how does that feel? And sometimes I ask permission with words, and sometimes I ask permission with,
Ooh, somebody's at your door.
yeah, well, let them go on by.
Walk on by.
Foolish pride, the tears and the sadness. No. Okay, goodness.
No, I love live things, where anything can happen. I feel bad for that person that they're not going to get to speak to you right now.
Yeah.
Do you want to go get it?
They might keep ringing. Hang on 1 second.
Go get it. It's okay.
Ta-da.
You're back.
Yeah. So that gives, I think we have to give ourselves permission to hear our story and really consider, what does it mean? How do you feel? Oh, I give you permission to lie down. Oh, no, you don't have to wash the dishes. You can go lie down. Oh, okay. So I think we need to reenact that in our own personal landscape. And that requires some vulnerability to ask permission. And so we have to say, oh, how do I feel safe? I think permission is all about feeling safe to ask for what we need, to give permission for them to ask what they need, to hear the story. So I find safety is a really important part of craniosacral therapy. That's part of fascial languaging. The body knows when it's safe.
Yeah.
There's a felt feeling of safety. And so that alone is a permission giving. I feel safe. Oh, okay. And so I find then you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable, because if you have permission, then you can have a fullness of your own expression. Or if you give someone permission, you're inviting them to tell their story, for them to be vulnerable, to them to have a moment where they're listened to. So it's kind of a contract word, permission.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So for people that are not going to be in Kansas City and cannot be in the room with you, how do we find a good craniosacral therapist? What do we ask?
Well, you have to look at their experience. What have they done? What's their criteria? What's their credentials? Are they a massage therapist? Are they a physical therapist? Are they osteopath? Are they medical? Are they a chiropractor? And each one of them is going to have a different style of craniosacral therapy. And then you have to ask, okay, do you have any other trainings? Do you do Tai Chi? Do you do Qigong? Are you a vegetarian? Do you drink juice? Do you like all these pieces are part of, to me, what I want in a craniosacral therapy. If they're high on caffeine instead of carrot, beet, celery, and lemon juice, I would rather them have the second. So, can we have a little juice afterwards? No. So, and I find that are they involved in a medical corporate entity? Is this going to be monitored by insurance? Is this going? You're going to take notes? Or are you going to like? What kind of building are you in? Is this your home? Is this your? That's why I love working out of my home, because people know immediately when they walk in.
Well, I mean, it's a sanctuary.
Well, it is, but if you walk into an office of a bank, it's really, I did that for 20 years, and it's really hard to create a sacred space with, 2x4 ceiling tiles as a ceiling.
It's definitely got a different energy for sure.
And so I find that it's a matter of checking the credentials and checking reviews of people that you trust. I would never go to somebody out of the book. I would always have to be someone that I knew, that had been there, that had done that, and then they could give me you need to watch out for this, or they're a little bit this way, or whatever. And so I find that personal references, that's all no one comes to me except by someone telling them, come over
Yeah.
here. And a lot of times
Likewise.
I'm like,
I have to know
they-
someone really well who's gone and seen somebody. Absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I ask, well, did they tell you what I do? No, they just told me that I had to go there.
I'm not sure if you can quite put into words what you do.
Well, that's because it has this wide, broad
Yeah.
panorama of experience. And so I find that,
And it's different every time. The session's different depending
well,
on
you're different every time.
where you're exactly.
But it's like there's a structure for sure. But do you want to look at how long they've been doing it? What else do they do? Are they in I feel it's important that I'm not just by myself. I have a bunch of other collaborative practitioners
Yes.
that I have a dialogue with. And so to me, it's not just me, it's the collaboration of practitioners that people walk into. So you want to be sort of like, well, who are you connected with? Do you know a midwife? Do you work with Abdullah? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's a really important thing. If a practitioner can work with babies and have a practice where people continue to refer to them, that's someone you want to go to.
Yeah.
Because
You're also
mamas,
drawing from so many modalities too. Is that the right word?
yeah, modality.
You're adept at so many ways of understanding and listening to the body and the spirit. And you're drawing from all of that knowledge and all of those resources in a session as well.
And so that makes it kind of a rare experience.
Yes.
You're not going to find someone who has that depth that's buried within a institution or an administrative kind of situation. So I find, it's not an easy kind of a find. It takes a lot of exploration.
But it's possible.
I go here,
Yeah.
I go here, listen to your friends, listen to your intuition. A lot of times, I don't know why I'm doing it, but my body goes, you go there and do that.
I have had those downloads, and I have gotten on a plane, a train, and in an automobile or on a bike or a scooter to get to this person.
Well, now that'll put a stop right there. Scooters.
So, I mean, when you are drawn to something, it's so great when you just listen to that.
Trust your body; it knows.
Yeah.
Ask your body, does this does this feel right? You could walk
Yeah.
out in the waiting room. Does this feel right? No, it doesn't feel right. You know, and it could be
Yeah. Oh
so many
God.
different
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Oh, Lee, I could talk to you about this all day long. I always close every episode with the same question, which is when you have a dream in your heart and you don't feel like you have what it takes to make it happen, what do you say? Or what do you do? Or how do you listen?
You go inside and maybe you've got the tools for a different kind of a dream. And so maybe it's not the dream that needs to be the thing that drives you, but finding what gifts you carry and what do they offer. So a dream tends to put us into an external, a future oriented kind of relationship with our life. And it's not that way. We need to say, what do I have now? How can I feel joy right now? Whether it's cooking a cheesecake or lying down or what, it's like get out of this futuristic kind of, I want to, I have a dream. Change it up to know what am I feeling right now? What's my sensation? What's the momentum? Where is it leading me? And go dreamless into the future. If you
Ooh.
Because what's going to be arising is far better than you could ever dream of. You can't even imagine the power and the potency of the divine creative process till you surrender to this. Okay, I'm doing this right now. So many times I wanted to leave Kansas City and go to Boulder, go to Taos, or go to Marin County, or go to these places. And that just took me away from what the job was right here, right now. What do I feel inside? And then let the momentum work.
I take that into my heart.
Thank you.
Thank you for this beautiful conversation. I love you.
I love you too. I just can't wait till you come back here so we can have some more cranial fun.
Oh my God.
Deep
I
in
will
the
be
heart of the
back.
hillbilly country.
I love it. I love it. I will see you soon.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, isn't he fantastic? So many takeaways. The original wounding of birth, that every baby, all of us, go through a life and death experience when we're born. And that the cranium and sacrum need to talk to one another because they get cut off during childbirth. And the body can learn to unwind and recover by being supported and listened to in a somatic way. I loved when he said healing is about undoing the original wounding. We have events in our lives, accidents, meetings, experiences, and it's about recreating an environment where that original wounding can find resolution. And thinking of healing as recovery, that we're always in recovery if we choose to be, and listening to the language of our bodies, that we've been locked out of our bodies, locked out of a sensation based life. And the power of craniosacral therapy, that it unlocks your magic and capacity to heal. It's the art of encouraging your innate healing power to come into full glory, contacting the life force energy in the body and giving it full permission to allow the body to rebalance, basically helping us touch our own healing resources. And practitioners have to have extensive knowledge of anatomy, but the hands have to be trained. Gosh, it was so interesting what he was saying about classical piano being the best training, that it programs the fascia in the hands, that every finger is different and they're powerful and strong and have the intelligence of music, of vibration, of frequency. I guess that's why touch is so powerful. that a practitioner has to initiate their hands into the magic of fascia. And the importance of fascia, we've spoken about this before on the podcast with Lauren Roxburgh and several other guests, that there's different kinds of fascia that make the body one whole piece. It's the magic intelligence of the body that is available and responsive whenever we turn inside and look. That our body functions better when we find ways to connect with our fascial language. That it's not about the mind, it's about intuition. Fascia is the way of the heart, that the heart is the biggest electromagnetic generator of the body, far bigger than the brain. And that cranial rhythm being fundamental to the entire body, and that rhythm is carried through the fascia. And that a practitioner feels the rhythm of our brain pulse, and that awakens our body's natural power to mobilize and heal itself, that we can facilitate the body's capacity to release trauma and dissolve scar tissue this way with patience and love and heat and warmth. It's not something you do, it's something you allow. When he was talking about recovery, about healing, the craniosacral therapy is the power of what I don't do. And thinking of healing and recovery as a spiritual practice, that whether you're Christian, Hindu, or Buddhist, the body is the original temple. And we dial into different frequencies and dimensions to access the divine play. And healing with love, that great practitioners have spiritual awareness and use intuition and compassion to tap into the natural healing magic that brings us back into resonance. I loved what he was saying about discipline and joy, that with anything, to master it, you've got to keep coming back to it and practice again and again, just coming back to the process. And you're doing and learning and becoming better. And being filled with joy as you're doing it, coming back to the buffet of joy. I loved it when he said that. Otherwise, it's a dry discipline when we do anything. That it's got to be the joy that juices us up so the discipline is easy, because you're involved in joy. I loved it. He said, there's nothing I get more joy about than sharing love. And being mindful of the containers we put ourselves in. Change the container, you change the consciousness. And to get out of the things that lock us into a mental framework that things have to be one way. How can we access our intuition? Getting in a dome, changing and breaking out of that 4x4 kind of life that we lead. That when you change what you surround yourself with, you change how you respond. It was interesting what he was saying about furniture distorting the natural flow of the energy in the body, that we're being tortured by chairs and furniture. We don't move in our natural way when we're sinking into a couch. And to connect with our original physical template and get into deep parasympathetic, we get on the floor, squat, sit on a ball, hug a tree, wiggle in the dirt, do all the things a baby would do. The babies give us permission to come into their world and get into that divine play. The benefits of Tai Chi and Qigong, that we should all be doing it because the Chinese modalities know how the body moves. It's in its original state. And by moving in this way, we can unwind the trauma lodged in the tissue and release the stories of fear. And thinking about pain differently, listening to our pain. What did he say? We eliminate pain and don't know how to listen to it. Pain is not bad. It's a story that we need to listen to. Take a risk of feeling the pain and changing the paradigm of the wound from something that has to be healed to something that reveals. Pain gives us access to the inner world in a way that nothing else does. So being okay with being wounded, being in pain, and looking at what that reveals, what we need to look at. And thinking about falls differently, particularly when we're older. If you fall down the stairs, it's not how you landed at the bottom of the stairs, it's how you got there. That's what has to be listened to so that the body can unwind and recover and release, because it's the body story. It's a really, really interesting way to think about it. And listening to our whole story and how it's all connected. I love how he makes up stories when he's in session so we can understand what's going on in our body, that the body hears everything we see and say. And we often just keep pushing through, we keep doing, and we often have these limiting beliefs about what we're capable of, that we're broken, that we can't be healed, that we're always going to be this way. We're one of these people that is this way, when there's so many other possibilities on the buffet. The value of dreaming and stories, that we have a greater capacity to see the possibilities when we invest and we listen to other stories, that our heart is dreaming, our cells are dreaming. And he just keeps asking questions and listens when you're in session with him. You really are transported into the dreaming, healing, or as he likes to call it, recovery space. That's seeing and feeling and listening differently and changing the story that we're telling ourselves and the stories that we listen to and buy into externally. And just giving ourselves permission to lie down if we don't feel good, that's not lazy. It's actually the best thing that we can do if there's just something not feeling right or we have acute pain. But that permission, I really appreciated the way that he framed that permission is all about feeling safe so that we can have a fullness of our own expression. So just asking, how do I feel safe? And acknowledging that it requires vulnerability to ask permission of ourselves and others. And we can learn how to give permission not only to ourselves, but give permission to others to hear their story without thinking that it's our fault or that we've done something wrong. And to ask for what we need and listen to what others need. Practicing permission words and phrases, asking for permission. We can't give permission if no permission was asked of. Can I touch you? Is this all right? How do you feel about this? And trusting our own bodies, trusting in the fascial languaging that our bodies know what is right and what is safe. Trusting that. Asking your body, does this feel right? And how to find a good craniosacral therapist. If you can't get to Kansas City, you can't see Lee. Asking people that you know and trust, other practitioners, getting a referral, looking at their experience and reviews. What is their criteria? What are their credentials? Are they a massage therapist, a physical therapist, an osteopath, a chiropractor? What other practitioners are they working with? Do they collaborate with? Where do they practice out of? What is the environment going to be like? And acknowledging that every practitioner will have a different style of craniosacral therapy. And the psychotherapy and the psychology behind it. So what other training do they have? Do they do Tai Chi, Qigong? How do they eat? That all plays into what kind of practitioner they're going to be. And that every session is different because we're different every time. And I love his perspective about dreams and staying present and the invitation to go dreamless into the future, because what is arising is far better than we could ever dream of. Surrendering to the power and the potency of the divine creative process. Oh, I feel like a plant that's been watered. Please connect with Lee if you are in Kansas City. I am telling you, you will be moved and changed. He really is a magician. You can connect with him at leevealdc.com. All the links are in our show notes. Please let me know what your experience has been with craniosacral therapy. I'm really fascinated by this because every practitioner is different. So please leave a review and a message in the Facebook group. I'm excited to hear your story.
I want to hear about your It Has to Be Me story. So head on over to ithastobeme.com/stories to share it in our free community. You can also join the conversations we're having about this episode and others. I'm Tess Masters. Join me next week and we'll dive inside another great story to help us go from dreaming to doing.